You're listening to the Sunrise Morning Show, and Sarah Bassil is joining us again from In Defense of Christians. Sarah, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Annie. Thank you for having me on.
It is good to have you. And today we are remembering the August 4th, 2020 explosion in the Port of Beirut. First of all, Sarah, because I know you have family in Lebanon, what do you remember about that day?
Well, like you said, I do have family, and in fact, they were just a couple, I feel like meters or feet away from the explosion hours before. My aunt actually worked at the port, and by the grace of God, she had gone home early that day. Usually she stays late, and there's no other way to say that it was a miracle that she had gone home early, because she would have been in direct contact of the blast. Like you said, I have family across Beirut, and they all have unique stories, but gratefully nobody got injured, but the city is really the one that took the impact of the blast more directly. As you know, I'm in the United States right now, and just being here and understanding how the diaspora saw it is also very traumatic. It's obviously not the same thing in any way as those who survived it. But I remember I saw it on the news, and I went to my dad and I said, Dad, there was an explosion in Beirut. And to show you how traumatized the Lebanese diaspora is, he goes, oh, well, there's always an explosion in Beirut. And I was like, Dad, no, this is not like a regular explosion. So I can't even begin to explain how, And every member of the diaspora and Lebanese people that were in Beirut there has a story like that, unfortunately.
Well, your dad's reaction just goes to show how unstable a situation it was in Lebanon prior to August 4th, 2020. But now, 1 year later, Sarah, what is the state of Lebanon? Has there been any improvement?
It's actually the contrary. There has not been any improvement. And in fact, the whole country continues to go backwards in terms of fixing the economy, the political gridlock. Right now, that there are estimates that say that 80% of the country is food insecure, which used to hover around 40% this time last year. The United Nations recently warned that the water supply is on the verge of collapse. About 70% of the country is now playing around with having bad water sources. And then, as you know, the Lebanese pound has fallen by 95% in just the last year and a half, 2 years. So it's all just declining in ways that are just spiraling. You have one thing that affects the next thing, and so it's very alarming. But the government continues to do close to nothing. In fact, it's hindering anything from stopping it, and therefore it's contributing to the horrible situation that the Lebanese find themselves.
And certainly, Cardinal Bashar Rai has been outspoken in calling for leadership in Lebanon to step up, has called on the international community to step up and really work towards some progress in Lebanon. Pope Francis has joined his voice to Cardinal Rai's. How important has their leadership been over the past year?
So, like you said, Cardinal Rai, who is the patriarch of the Maronite Catholic Church, he's called for two things: an international conference on Lebanon and regional, Lebanon staying away, neutrality from the conflicts of the region. And that's one of the things that affects Lebanon greatly. Those two things are really important because Lebanon has Hezbollah meddling with other conflicts in the region, and that comes back to the Lebanese more than anyone. And so having the leader of the Maronite Catholic Church, which constitutes about 30 to 40% of the country, step up and say, hey, we need the United States, we need France, we need the UK to help end the terror rule of Hezbollah in the country. It's more important than ever because there's no leadership from the government. And when you have the support of Pope Francis, who hosted a number of Lebanese Christian leaders a few weeks ago, step up and say, you're right, we need that support for Lebanon. The people are suffering, whether they are Christian or Muslim or Druze or whatever they identify as. It's important for step to first bringing that international attention, but also placing pressure on the corrupt political class of Lebanon. They've been in power for 30, 40 years, literally the same 5, 6 of them. And at one point, they were working to help Lebanon, but now it's just to see whatever they can get out of the country before it completely collapses. And we obviously don't want that. Nobody wants that. And so the leadership of Patriarch Rai and Pope Francis is more important than ever now as the country reaches where it reached at the moment.
Sarah, can you talk about the just everyday regular Christian population in Lebanon? I mean, I know that in any community you're going to have differing opinions on solutions to big problems such as this. But I mean, are Christians united in a way forward, or is the disunity causing any problems in that regard?
Yes, ma'am. So you put that very perfectly. The disunity can be argued to be one of the biggest factors in the destabilization of the political class. And so, as you know, as I said, there's about 30 to 40% of the population is Christian, but then you have divides between those communities too, and that's spillover from the Civil War. But you have many Christians that are advocating for the West to come in, international conferences. But then, unfortunately, you do have a small part of the population that, is still supporting President Hollande, still supporting his initiatives. And so it's more important than ever to create that unity. And I think that's what the Patriarch Rai and Pope Francis were attempting to do. As you know, the delegation that came to the Vatican a couple of weeks ago was an ecumenical effort. It wasn't just Patriarch Rai of the Maronite Catholic Church. You had church leaders from the Orthodox Church and the Protestant Church. So it was really important for that to come forth as a unified Christian voice, and it's more important than ever to get that message stronger and really take that to the next level with political reforms, because the church is very influential in Lebanon. They own half of the land in the country. Most of the schools across the country take in Muslim, Christian, and Jewish students with no questions for their religion. And arguably, if you lose that influence in the country, you lose a lot of the social fabric.
We've been talking to Sarah Bassil. You can find In Defense of Christians linked at sunrisemorningshow.com. And Sarah, I know you've had a lot of action items at IDC over the past year when it comes to Lebanon. How can listeners find that?
Yeah, so thank you for bringing up the website. If you go to indefenseofchristians.org and take a look at the Take Action button and click on it, you'll see a number of different action alerts. We'll have a letter that you can send to your members of Congress on a number of various items, including asking them to support Cardinal Rai's calls for active neutrality and an international-backed conference. And so I encourage your listeners to head to those web pages.
As do I. Sarah Bassil, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Annie.